not your birthday, so I did not get a card. But it doesn't matter, 'cause I did not get that far. Inside your house, should have asked you to come out. Instead, I stared at my phone, waiting around. It's been a while since I have attempted to.
Hello, all you beautiful people of the internet. Welcome to another week, another segment of Emo Trash.
Welcome to Emo Trash, episode 3.
Oh yeah, I guess
Kind
it says
of.
3. Kind
If
of.
one gets released at all, or half version.
Episode
or
2/episode 3, counting the lost episode.
Yeah, that's not confusing.
Do we introduce ourselves? Is that a thing
I
that
don't
we
know.
do?
I'm Jeremy.
I'm Rob,
and we're Emo Trash.
Yeah, essentially.
That's
and
essentially it.
we will discuss some Emo Trash albums this
Yeah,
week, specifically.
today we're doing 2 really fun ones. We're going to start with an album, Folie à Deux. And Folie à Deux, Rob has heard me talk about quite a time.
Very extensively.
Quite a time. It is one of my favorite albums of all time. It is possibly my favorite album to talk about, ever. I think it is a fascinating album, and I think the best way I could intro this album, and I thought long and hard about this, because this is the first album we're diving into that is really one of my favorite albums of all time. I've thought
Really?
extensively about it. It's my 4th favorite as of right now.
Right, okay.
I've listened to it for years, and I've analyzed it to death. And
Also, in case you don't know who it is, it's by Fall Out Boy. Because I was waiting for you to say Fall Out Boy by Fall Out Boy.
Folie à Deux is the 3rd album by Fall Out Boy. It's the 4th album by Fall Out Boy. It comes after Infinity on High. It was released in 2009.
Yes.
And it was their last album before their hiatus, which they returned with Save Rock and Roll. So that's what that in context. That should probably have come first.
Yeah.
The best way I can introduce Folie à Deux is that I have a particular sensation named after it. In my own head. Not a sensation, but
Like an emotional state?
No, you'll figure it out. It's called Folie à Deux syndrome. Folie à Deux syndrome
What?
is my name for when a band has a discography I love. They have an entire discography I'm all about. I'm into a bunch of their albums. I enjoy them. They're great. However, if you ask me what's their best songs, it would seem as if I only liked one of their albums. Because all of their best songs, I think, are on one album. If you ask me, do you like Fall Out Boy? I say they're my third favorite band of all time. Love them to death. If you ask me what are the top 4 Fall Out Boy songs, I would say they're all off Folie à Deux.
That's so funny.
And you'd look at me like, do you just like Folie à Deux? And I'm like, no, I think they're all around amazing. But this album is so beyond and incredible and insane that it kind of makes it seem like I don't like the other stuff as much. That's Folie à Deux syndrome.
Okay, so then my question for you, for bands that fall under your Folie à Deux syndrome, is: do you think that those bands peak at their Folie à Deux albums? Do you think Fall Out Boy peaked at Folie à Deux?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Do I think Fall Out Boy peaked at Folie à Deux? I think it may turn out to be the best thing they've ever released.
Because I will say, probably one. I've talked about openers once or twice on this show, and I will say one of my favorite openers is Disloyal Order of the Water.
I would say it's one of the greatest openers I've ever heard.
So good.
I would love to get into this, but first I'd like to hear how you would like to intro this album.
You want to know something funny about this album?
I would love to.
For a long time, when I first got into Fall Out Boy, which, by the way, I didn't get into Fall Out Boy until after the hiatus with Save Rock and Roll.
I didn't get into Fall Out Boy till 2010-ish, so after they had released everything at least.
And what was I going to say? I always said to my friend Cade, and shout out if you're listening, that I hated Folie à Deux. Only because he loved Folie à Deux, and I just loved to piss him off. But after I started listening to more of their older stuff and got really into Infinity on High, that's when I transitioned to Folie à Deux, and I was like, this is a masterpiece. This is somewhere in between pop and punk, and I love it.
Yeah, I think starting with Infinity on High is actually a good place to start with this album.
Right.
Because Infinity on High, when I look at Infinity on High, I love the album. I think it's a great album. But it's tonally extremely inconsistent. There are so many different styles on it, so many different things they decided to try, but at the same time, they were trying to stick to their roots a bit. And even lyrically, though, there's a whole other thing I'd get into if I was talking about Infinity on High, the album's a kind of uneven.
Okay, as opposed to Folie à Deux?
Folie à Deux feels like instead of just putting different pieces in, they took the ingredients and stirred them up and just made it so it all flows together. It might be weirder, further off the rails, and crazier than Infinity on High.
But it's consistent.
And it flows.
Okay.
And it when we get into the pacing of this album, you'll see why I have this to say. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we get into like going through it?
No, let's get into it. I really want to, honestly, I just really want to talk about Disloyal Order of the Water
I
Buffaloes.
would be
like,
happy to talk about Disloyal Order of the Water
just
Buffalo.
the build up for it. I don't know. It reminds me of Is it too much to say? It almost reminds me of like a Queen-esque song.
This album is very Queen-esque.
Right?
In its best moments, it's very Queen-esque. Because the benefits of this album, and the reason I love this album so much, is there are albums I like that I think do a lot of things right, that are near perfection. My fifth favorite album of all time is an album called Paper Walls by Yellowcard.
Never listened to Yellowcard.
Paper Walls by Yellowcard, I put as my fifth favorite album, and one of the greatest albums I've ever heard, because I believe it is near perfect pop punk emo. Like, to its highest decimal of near perfection.
Okay.
Folie à Deux is far from that album. It is not an album I think is near perfect in any way. There are missteps, there are mistakes, but it is so weird and tries so many new things and is so different that I think it sustained itself on that itself.
That individuality?
That difference, and it basks in it. Almost every song on this album feels off the rails. That it's weird and different and crazy and kind of like it doesn't feel like it belongs anywhere. But this album is full of so many of those songs that the album kind of feels like a journey. It kind of feels like you're going from one style to another.
Would you consider Folie à Deux a concept album?
It'd be hard to say. There's conceptual themes. There's a lot of political themes, a lot of personal themes that go through it, and it's clear that they're there, and they're supposed to be on this album together, but I don't know if I'd call it a concept album.
Yeah.
But I think it basks in its weirdness. I think the fact that it's just hanging on to a full cohesive album, but it's so close to falling apart, is incredible that they made it work.
Yeah.
And I think a great lead up to this is finally getting into Disloyal Order of the Water Buffalo.
Yeah, let's actually talk about some songs on this album.
Because it is one hell of a build-up, and some of the lyrics on this album get you ready for what you're going to experience.
The lyricism in Folie à Deux is just like weirdly absurd, but like in a great way.
It is a great example of something I call anecdotal writing, which I will not get into my full spiel on, because there's two albums I love that represent this, and Folie à Deux is one of them. It's a kind of writing style that I would say they employ here where there isn't really a narrative to any lyrics.
Yeah,
it's just kind of little anecdotes that kind of make you feel things, and they add up to a full emotion after you finish listening. But while you're listening to it, it's just everywhere.
True, yeah. The lyrics don't seem to like follow a certain story or a certain like event, whereas like a lot of pop punk songs usually,
especially pop punk,
especially like in the pop punk scene and in the newer scene, usually have songs and whole albums that center around specific events or specific occurrences in somebody's life. Where this just feels like it almost feels generic, but not in a generic way. You know what I mean?
I can see that, and I think part of that, and part of the reason I love this album, is because it's big.
Yeah,
a lot of these albums, the emo scene, the pop punk scene, the punk scene, have small albums. They have small, intimate albums. This is not that album. This is Fall Out Boy raised to the big screen.
Yeah.
This is an album that's anthemic, and it's big. At the same time, it doesn't feel like it doesn't have anything to say.
Right.
It's first of all, if you ever look into the production of this album, it's a very political album, and during the tour they had like political cartoonish kind of things going on in the background. It was a very political album, and it's clear that they had a lot to say about politics, about people, about how people act. They had a lot to say, and just because it's a big album, it doesn't detract from that.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel hollow anthemic, which a lot of modern, I would say modern pop more, like Imagine Dragons kind of stuff.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
It's very anthemic and very big, but it sounds kind of hollow.
Yeah, right. Like there isn't much sustenance behind it.
Yeah.
It's just kind of saying it because it knows people can relate to it.
Yeah, where this, it's clear that first of all, some verses are like 20 lines long. They're throwing things in there real fast because they have a lot to say, a lot of statements to make.
True.
So I think just because it's big, it still has a lot to say. And Disloyal Order Wild Buffalo is a great way to do that because the lyrics in this song are insane.
Also, I know it's a joke, but like Fall Out Boy really do have some very long song titles.
Especially on Folie à Deux.
Especially on Folie à Deux.
But my best memory of Disloyal Order of the Water Buffalo, before we move on from this song, is I was in a car with you not too long ago, and I was giving you my spiel on anecdotal writing, and you were like, I don't think Disloyal Order of the Water Buffalo is that ridiculous narratively. And I read you these lyrics. Oh, little girl, you got me staring odd, or was it just a telescopic camera nod? Pointed doors in the highway, truck stop stalls, lot lizard scales, cool my nightlife moods. All the rookies, leave your badge on the gun.
Light lizard scales to what now?
Lot lizard scales cool my nightlife moods.
See, I just looked up the lyrics, and it
Oh.
says lot lizard scales to deny my rules.
Ooh, we have contradictions
we
here.
have conflict. here.
Regardless, as you could hear in those lyrics, there is no narrative sense to them.
Mm-hmm.
They are, but they add up to this like feeling as you listen to it, and the music definitely helps because the music on this album is all over the place.
True.
However, though, that is a sad lead up to I Don't Care,
Yeah.
which in my opinion is the one misstep of the album.
You really think so?
Lyrically, I think it's fine.
Right. Okay.
It's interesting lyrically. Musically, it is the only song on the album that bores me.
Really.
It kind of feels that way. It feels like it was supposed to be a single, and it's the most relatable. It sounds the most like their other work. Like it has kind of an. It's not a. It ain't
It
a
doesn't
scene,
have as
it's
much
an
of
arms
a-
race kind of vibe to it.
It doesn't have as much of like because a lot of Foil I Do is very high production. It's very like
I wouldn't even say high production as much. It doesn't feel as off the rails and crazy.
yeah okay I
Like
can see that.
Yeah, and I guess if you wanted to get a sense of what I'm saying about the off the rails and crazy production and like just the songs in general, the best example would probably be Head First Slide into Cooperstown on A Bad Bet. So if you're looking to figure out what I'm trying to say, that would be a good example of it.
Yeah, right.
After that, oh my god, I don't even know what the third song's called. It's the song about like you got the thunder.
You mean She's My Winona?
She's my Winona. What a title.
I mean, Winona Ryder was pretty popular at the time that this album came out, right?
Yeah, I don't know how much you have to say about either of these two songs, this and American Sweethearts. I don't have too much.
They're very Hollywood, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, they're very Hollywood, and they add to the theme of this album. They're none of them really. They keep you. Both of them kind of keep you on your toes, especially American Sweetheart, which changes what's going on in the song every second or two.
Right.
They keep you on your toes. They continue the album. It's chugging along, and you're kind of just going through this journey of weird song to weird song to weird song, but it sounds like one complete album.
I don't know if this is interesting, but the Fall Out Boy actually made some commentary on their genius lyrics for this song. For the line, "Life's just a pace car of death, only less diligent," they said, "The idea is that death is a thing that is imminent. Life is what is happening. Life is the thing that happens until then. The less diligent line refers to the idea of how fragile we are. We can be alive, but sick, or alive, but heartbroken. To me, if life and death were characters, death has always felt more diligent, more sure of himself."
That is awesome.
Yeah.
And it gets into some of the incredible imagery on this album. I would like to throw out a few of my favorite Fall Out Boy lines of all time are on this album, including one that says, there's one on Tiffany Blues that is, "I got a lot of friends who are stars, but some are just black holes."
That's a great
That's always
line.
stuck with me. I just think it's such a good
Yeah.
line. But so you get through American Sweethearts,
Right.
and then you get on to Head First Slide into Cooperstown on A Bad Bet.
That is a wonderful song.
I am going to make quite the claim.
All right, let's
In
hear
my
it.
opinion, this is hands down, without zero debate in my mind, the greatest song Fall Out Boy's ever written.
Really?
100% believe that.
That's a hot take
I think
there,
this song
Jeremy.
is a masterpiece. The way you're always on your toes, but you're always invested in the lyrics, you're always invested in the musical, it changes on a dime, it keeps you going, it keeps you interested, and it sounds ginormous. The song as a whole just sounds huge.
It does sound extremely huge. It's interesting that you pull so much from a song about someone cheating on their husband.
Oh my god. Also, it does a great job at making something feel personal.
Yeah,
which
right.
Fall Out Boy is not always the best at, but when they do it and they can incorporate their typical lyrical stylings into that style of making something feel more personal, it succeeds full throw. And I would say this song, they do a fantastic job. Lyrically, they do a fantastic job musically. Production's incredible. And again, it just sounds encapsulating. It kind of like brings you in. It draws you in. And then you get into, I believe next is Shipping the Gold Standard.
The Shipped Gold
The
Standard.
Shipped Gold Standard.
Yep.
Which I would again say is one of Fall Out Boy's best songs.
I definitely think it's up there because it's one of the more memorable songs on this
Yeah.
album. That song, Disloyal Order, The Water Buffaloes, and and What a Catch Donnie, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, on the album, we get Shipped Gold Standard. After that, do we get What to Catch Donnie or do
No,
I'm
it's
probably gonna
one
cut
more
this out.
song.
We get Coffees for Closers, right?
Yeah, Coffees for Closers.
So I'd like to start there because Head First Line to Cooperstown, Shipped Gold Standard, Coffees for Closers. 3 of Fall Out Boy's best songs, in my opinion, in a row on this album, and that portion of the album is incredible. Every time I listen to it, I get lost in it. It draws you in. It makes there's so many great lyrics, so many interesting musical choices. All 3 songs are incredible.
It
Then
makes
you-
for a good halfway point.
Yes, and then you get into What a Catch Donnie, which is, I guess, the ballad of the album.
Yeah,
I
right.
think it's to the credit of the album that even though it's a ballad, it sounds ginormous.
Right.
It sounds big, it sounds anthemic, but it still sounds like a ballad.
Yeah.
it does a very interesting job at mixing those styles.
The medleys from the old songs too. It's just
Yeah.
so I don't know. I'm a sucker for
I thought you might
medleys.
want to talk about that because at the end of it, there's a medley which has some insane guests.
Yeah, it's Brendan Urie's on there.
The lead singer of the Cabs on there.
Yeah.
The lead singer of Cobra Starship's on there, I believe.
Just an all-star cast for like an incredible medley of all like
Old songs.
old songs and very personal songs that like they were very well known for.
Yeah, they do Sugar We're Going Down. They
Down.
do Dance Dance. They do Where Is Your Boy Tonight? Grand Theft Autumn. They do they do a few of them.
Yeah.
So they go through these, and it kind of feels like they're talking about the past, and it's a great halfway mark. The album, you're kind of reaching the part where the album has done a lot of it, you've been on this journey, and now you're going to start winding down. But it's not really a wind down, it's more of a build-up. Because you get into Whams and
Yeah.
Tiffany Blues.
Yeah, and 27.
And 27. You get this kind of streak of more punk-based songs.
Right. It kind of switches from like the very produced and very like complex Freddie Mercury-esque to back to their roots, to their old like more punk like 4-piece band style.
They sound more it sounds more straightforward.
Right.
While the beginning of the album feels all over the place, when you hit 27 right after What a Catch Donnie, it kind of feels more straightforward. It's a more straightforward punk song.
For sure.
And then you get Tiffany Blues, which, despite the fact that it has a feature from Lil Wayne singing the bridge, and it's not even where it's like, that's Lil Wayne. It's like, no, I'm listening to Lil Wayne. That's 100% Lil Wayne.
Yeah, right.
But it still fits,
Yeah,
which is,
right.
again, a testament to the album. It sounds completely natural in the song.
Works perfectly.
But you get these three...
It doesn't feel as out of place as the intro from, I forget who the guest artist was, for
Thriller?
For Thriller, yeah.
Thriller, I mean, it would sound more out of place if it wasn't an intro to an album.
Yeah, right.
But it's still a little out of place.
Right.
So you get 27 Tiffany Blues and Whams. And it's kind of just a dose of the more straightforward punk.
Right.
And this is where we get into my very few actual issues with the album. Because you get these three punk songs, and you're starting to go, oh, it's getting a little straightforward. But then you get the end of Whams, which is Patrick Stump just stumping it for like 30 seconds, going, which also, if you skip to the end if you skip to the last chorus of like any song on this album, you can hear Grey Day stumping. Almost every... There is one thing about this album that I would say is...
Stumping.
Taylor Swift.
What? Okay.
Her last album before...
Choose your next words very carefully.
Before... I'm trying to think of how to introduce this, and I can't. Taylor Swift released an album 1985, 1983, whatever the hell it was. And I really liked it. It was like it had Shake It Off. It was that album. Blank Space. And there's one thing... I really like that album in general, but there's one thing I loved about that album, and it has a lot of commonality with this album. Both know how to do backing vocals masterfully. The backing vocals on this album are fantastic by
You're
Patrick.
not wrong.
If you listen to
I don't know if I would compare Patrick Stump to Taylor Swift, but
I don't
okay.
know. The backing tracks in both albums are very good.
Sure, all right.
Maybe the comparison was
I'll give you that.
unnecessary, but yeah, especially if you listen to the end of I Don't Care, you can just hear him going, yeah, in the background for like 50 seconds.
He's an R&B boy.
It's incredible.
He enjoys his whiny vocals. It's great. I love it.
So you get 27 Tiffany Blues Whams. It ends with the Patrick Stump stumping it for 30 seconds. It kind of throws you off, and then $20 Nosebleed starts.
Yes.
A piano
Right.
pop song with Brendan Urie.
I love it.
I love it.
So good.
It throws you off your feet completely. You're like, where am I? What's happening?
What's going on? There's only like 3 songs left in this album.
There's only one song after this.
There's only one song after this?
After $20 Nosebleed, all you have is West Coast Smoker. And it completely throws you off.
Oh,
And
shit, yeah.
I love that. I love how much it throws you off. And then it ends with a spoken word poem.
Yeah.
Which further is like, where am I?
Right.
What is happening? This album just completely took a left turn.
They just did something really weird at the end.
But then comes West Coast Smoker. And I like West Coast Smoker as a song. I don't love it as a closer. Don't hate it as a closer, but it feels like it's not satisfying.
You think
After
so?
such a weird turn with $20 Nosebleed, I was expecting a song as big as Disloyal Order of the Water Buffalo. I don't think I've said that right once.
We should just call it Water Buffaloes. I mean, we're pretty much at the end of this segment,
Yeah.
but like, we should just call it Water Buffaloes.
As big as Water Buffaloes or Head First Slide. I was expecting something as big as that. And instead, we get a good song, but it's a song that it just kind of feels like a song similar to 27 or Whams, where it's a more straightforward punk song. It really doesn't... It's not really all over the place.
Yeah, okay.
And for an album that's so all over the place, an album that basks in that weirdness, and an album where my favorite thing about it is that weirdness, it feels odd to end on an oddly straightforward song.
I think I understand where you're coming from, but I think I like West Coast Smoker as a closer, not so much for its musical quality, but its lyricism. I think
The lyricism's
lyrically, West Coast Smoker makes a fantastic closer.
I would not disagree with that.
Right. It's just the themes of like religion and personal conflict, especially the chorus. It's literally just like knock once for the Father, twice for the Son, 3 times for the Holy Ghost, and it's just like, yeah, okay.
It does a lot of good imagery. It feels like an ending statement to an album lyrically.
Right.
But musically, it feels so out of place because it feels like it doesn't feel that different from 27 or Whams or anything. And I felt like for the closing track, after something like $20 Nosebleed and the spoken word, they're going to go for something way out there.
So
and they don't.
My
and
question
feels kind of.
Yeah, right. No, go ahead.
It just feels kind of It's like let down.
Okay, fair enough. But my question for you then is, if you could reorder this album, what would
That's
you
the
put
thing.
at the last song?
When I was going through this album, thinking about like what I was going to say about it, many less pacing problems stood out to me than we have in the last the albums. And I think that, and I got into this a little bit, it's not necessarily because the pacing's perfect, it's because every song is so weird that the album feels more like a journey through these weird styles. And that's why when it gets kind of caught up in one style, that's the problem. That's where it kind of gets annoying.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
There are songs that I would say, honestly, you could put Head First Slide into Cooperstown on a Bad Bet as a closer, and I would not blink an eye. I think it was a fantastic closer, especially with this Water Buffalo as an opener still.
Yeah, right.
There's not much I would change about this album pacing-wise. I think it's paced incredibly well.
Honestly, I would put What a Catch Donnie as the closer.
I would not disagree with that, especially with ending with the medley.
Right, that would be such a just a typical but very like good closer.
The thing with that is, I really like What a Catch Donnie where it is right now. I like it being the start of that punk part of the album.
Yeah, okay.
Where it gets really punk. It hits a ballad and then it goes punk, and I like that. I like that shift.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
So, do you have any closing thoughts on this album?
If you've never listened to Fall Out Boy, which I don't know how you haven't. Oh, I mean, I can understand, I guess. Let's start with Foil Adieu. Start with Foil Adieu, or...
Really?
Yeah.
You'd say start with Foil... I would never tell someone to start with Foil Adieu. I think it's the hardest to digest.
Really?
I would say if you want to start with From Under the Cork Tree.
See, no, if you're gonna go like old Fall Out Boy, I would actually say start with Take This to Your Grave.
I mean, I wouldn't completely disagree with that statement.
Like, if we're comparing Cork Tree to Take This to Your Grave, as far as like which one should you start with, I'd say Take This to Your Grave.
I'm not a huge fan of Take This to Your Grave, which explains why I don't say that.
Yeah.
But I think Foil Adieu...
You think it's a little too hard? It's because my mentality is like I'm thinking like maybe people haven't listened to a lot of punk rock or a lot of pop punk. So this kind of bridges the gap in a very weird way.
In a very weird way. If you're into pop and are looking to get into pop punk, it would be the album to start with, though that's an odd place to be.
You never know.
You never know. Overall, again, I love this album. I'm very happy we got to talk about it.
Likewise.
I have plenty more to say about it that I can't even get into.
But I think we said enough.
I've said plenty.
I think we've said plenty about this album.
I've said plenty.
So I guess we should move on to album number 2?
I would love to move on to album number 2.
I'm so excited for album number 2.
So I did something odd with this album. I didn't listen to it, besides the time I listened to it with you right after.
Why?
I've
just been listening to it on repeat.
That's the thing. I want to hear your thoughts on it more. I feel like I hijack conversations a lot.
That's fair.
And I want to hear mainly your thoughts on this album. I have plenty to say about it.
Okay,
but
sure.
I want to hear what you have to say about it.
So, the next album that we're discussing is Beat the Champ by the Mountain Goats, which is a fantastic album all about 80s wrestling. And
oh my god, is it?
I don't know how they managed it.
I think we need to take 1 second. When we say an album all about 80s wrestling, we're not talking about, it's an album where they mention 80s wrestling. It is an album where every single song on the album is about a particular thing
moment,
in 80s
an
wrestling.
event in 80s wrestling history.
Either it's about an event or it's like a theoretical, I'm a wrestler in the 80s, here's me doing something in a match. Every song is about 80s wrestling.
And my biggest opinion on this album is it would make the most beautiful musical soundtrack.
Yes.
Like, if you put a cool, like, narrative to this album, you would have an incredible stage performance, because the opening song, Southwestern Territory, like, I just really want to... Can I talk about Southwestern Territory for like a hot second?
I would love to hear you talk about this album, because, again, this is an album that I've known for a while. Like, I believe I knew it since it came out on... Oh, God, I do not want to get this wrong. I want to say 2015, but it might be 2013.
It was 2015.
It was 2015.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was right.
Yes.
2015, I know it since it came out. I've been a huge fan of it. It's one of my favorite Mountain Goats albums.
Right.
I think it is awesome.
So, Southwestern Territory...
Why did I start saying that?
I don't know.
I feel like I had a point, but now it just sounds like I was bragging.
It's okay. It's a great album. Southwestern Territory is the opening track on Beat the Champ, and
oh yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I was gonna say. I've heard it many times. I would love to hear someone who has not talked about it.
it's basically it's like if you know any musical theater, the first song in a show is typically the what's the overture, and the overture kind of gives you an idea of what the show as a whole is going to be like. Sometimes they incorporate songs from like a bit of the melody from every song in the show into the overture, or sometimes it just gives you the emotional feel. And I think Southwestern Territory is a great like opening to the emotional feel of this album.
Yes.
In the sense that like it's weirdly poetic. It's weirdly this beautiful like jazzy piano and soulful vocals about climbing a turnbuckle and like pinning somebody.
It's
on
about
local TV.
wrestling in local wrestling in the 80s and knowing that you have to do whatever it takes to get on the news. Like he says, take 2 falls out of 3, blackout for local TV. You got to do whatever you can to get ahead.
Right.
And it's all about just the desperation that comes with just you got to keep going. You got to keep putting yourself out there despite all the bullshit. You got to keep going.
And just to refer back to Folie à Deux, the musical direction that this album takes isn't nearly as weird, but it takes some interesting directions.
Oh, very.
Because after this like soulful jazzy opener, it goes straight into typical like kind of poppy, folky Mountain Goats.
Oh, it goes into a very
Chavo
odd
Guerrera.
song. So I realized something that I never realized about this album, and I'd like to bring it up just for the pure novel fact that I just realized something I've never realized about this album.
What?
It kind of has a shell as an opener and closer. If you think
Like
about
bookends?
it, it kind of has a double-layered shell. Because the opener is Southwestern Territory,
Right.
which is just a song about actually wrestling.
Right.
And then the closer is Hair Match, a song about actually wrestling.
Right.
The second song on the album is about a wrestler growing up and becoming a wrestler. The second to last song on the album is a song about retiring from wrestling.
Oh wow, you're right.
Isn't that
I
kinda
never realized
weird?
that. Yeah.
I realized that, and
That bookending is like wow. Okay.
my first thought was, why isn't the opener Legend of Chavo Guerrera and the closer the one before Hair Match about the wrestler retiring?
The Ballad of Bull Ramos.
The Ballad of Bull Ramos. Why is that? And I realized why it wasn't, and it connects to your point. Southwestern Territory sets the emotional theme of this album.
Right.
Whether it does not make sense narratively, but that's kind of another theme of the album, that narrative's not important. It's all about the emotional progress from one thing to another. And it really does set the emotional theme of the album. It does it fantastically.
I think one of my favorite aspects of this album, as far as lyricism goes, is I feel really bad because I can never remember his last name.
Darnielle?
John Darnielle. He switches perspective from wrestler to fan throughout the album, and I love it. It's
when
great.
I was first listening to it, I thought it was he called it a concept album, and young me, or 2015 me, it's not even young me, was like, oh, so it tells a story.
Right.
And I was listening to it, and that was real jarring,
Right.
hearing him switch perspective. But after I kind of got like what he was going for, he was trying to make this album is not a narrative. It's a setting.
Right, it's world building.
It's world building in an album. And it just kind of creates this. When you finish the album, you kind of feel like you were there.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it does.
Honestly, like listening to this album, low key has been making me want to like look into 80s wrestling.
Yes,
and watch
it makes you
old
want
matches.
when I first got into this album, I was rooming with someone who was a huge wrestling fan, and I would ask him all these things, like, he talks about this, like, what is that? Like, I asked him what a hair match was.
Right.
Do you know what a hair match was?
I don't know what a hair match is.
A hair match, which is the name of the closing song of this album,
Right.
and it's actually about a hair match, is when the loser has their head shaved.
What?
That's what a hair match is.
No way.
And that's why he sings about, I had a razor and 2 people were holding you down.
That's, oh my god.
And then he talks about how, like, there will be no cameras filming, but of course there will be several in the building.
Yeah.
And if someone just happens to press record, and it's all about this wrestling, and it makes you feel like you're there. And it's fascinating because John Darnielle, if you've never listened to Mountain Goats, you're missing out, has always had an incredible talent at making you feel like you were there.
Yeah.
But this is the first time he's ever dedicated an album to a setting. It's not to telling stories. It's a setting. It's
And
to creating. It's world building.
It's world building, and it works so well because
Yeah.
he incorporates all this incredible detail without actually having to like.
Yes.
He shows. He doesn't tell. It's like the cardinal rule
details
of writing.
Are put in so perfectly, and I mean, going through the album. So we were kind of going through them. You
Yeah.
get the Legend of Chavo Guerrero, which is
Right.
a really fun, folky.
Right.
Just
No,
song.
all the songs up until Heel Turn 2 are fun, folky songs.
Well, besides Southwestern Territory.
Besides, that's
Then you get Foreign Object, which
Right.
I'm just going to throw this out there. One of my favorite songs to listen to stoned. It is a bop about stabbing someone in the eye with like a knife in the middle of a wrestling
great
match.
Trumpets in the background.
There's trumpets. It's a bop. It's amazing. It's fun as hell. Then you get Heel Turn 2.
Heel Turn 2 is like, again, bringing this back to the musical theater analogy, is the end of Act 1 or the start of Act 2. Because not only does it change pacing as far as lyricism goes, it also changes the mood of the music changes too, because everything after Southwestern Territory and before Heel Turn 2 are bops. They're fun, they're poppy, they're major. Then when you get to Fire Editorial,
after Animal Mask, things get real serious fast. Songs like Legend of Chavo Guerrero and Foreign Object are both just kind of fun.
Right. And then even Choked Out is a little fun because it's in a...
Well, Choked Out's after Animal Mask.
Yeah, but you're saying things after Animal Mask get
they do get more serious though.
But I don't think Choked Out is that much more. I think Choked Out, if I were to break up the album into parts, it would be Southwestern Territory and Hair Match are the open and closer. Then you've got the rest of Act 1, which is The Legend of Chavo Guerrero up until Heel Turn 2, and then Act 2, which is Fire Editorial up until Ballad of Bull Ramos.
Did you say Heel Turn 2 the first time, not Animal Mask?
Yeah.
I agree with that more. I don't know why I didn't hear you.
Yeah.
I would 100% agree Heel Turn 2 is the turning point and where he gets serious.
Right, exactly.
Heel Turn 2, and the best part is it is a prime example of showing, not telling. You hear the desperation in his voice. You hear him change. And that's why when I was listening to this for the first few times as a narrative, it kind of makes sense.
Right.
Because emotionally, there's clearly, I'm growing up, I'm having fun, things are getting serious, things are getting crazy, I'm learning to accept it. There's clearly this emotional development throughout the album.
And he also switches it up musically to match the emotional development of the album. A lot of the first songs are in major keys. They're a lot faster and a lot poppier. But then you get into Fire Editorial, which is in a minor key.
And it's real weird.
It's really weird. It's a little more open.
It's
and
dark. It feels ominous.
Yeah, right.
I would love to talk about Choked Out, though.
Choked Out is weirdly fun. It's like morbidly fun.
Choked Out may be my favorite Mountain Goat song.
Really?
Yes. Choked Out is probably at least top 3. Choked Out is such a fun song because it feels like what it is. It's supposed to be a song that's just stream of consciousness.
Yeah,
and it 100% feels like a song that's just stream of consciousness. Yet it feels like stream of consciousness that's written by a professional poet.
Yeah,
which it is.
Right.
It's written by Josh Darnielle.
Right.
Or
Josh Darnielle?
John Darnielle.
You all right, man? You need some coffee or something?
It's written by John Darnielle, who's incredible at storytelling.
Right.
And it just... there's a line where he's slowly... first of all, the song Choked Out is literally about being choked out. He's in a wrestling match and getting choked out, and this is what he's thinking. And there's a line where he's kind of talking about how things are getting worse, and then he says, fire up the grill, everybody eats tonight. And then everything goes abstract.
Yeah.
And you can tell that's the moment where he lost it. That's the moment where the character in the wrestling match lost it, and he's starting to think about all these crazy thoughts that are entering his head because he's literally blacking out.
Right, he's going unconscious, so now...
And just the storytelling and how you can literally follow this motion through a wrestling match, and especially after something like Animal Mask, which is all about getting in the ring despite the fear, and then you get Choked Out, which is all about how terrifying it can be.
Yeah, right.
It ends with one...
But it's... And I think maybe this has partial to do with... It almost feels like the first couple songs feel like an adrenaline rush, and then after Heel Turn 2, it feels like a come down.
It feels like the realism set.
Yeah, exactly.
I completely agree with you. So after that, we get Heel Turn 2, which is emotional crux of the album, I would say.
Yeah, right.
That song is beautiful. You hear the desperation in his voice as he says, I'm getting out of this alive. It's about him just, breaking down in the ring and just... He has nowhere else to go, but he says, no, this is it. This is my test. I'm going to live through this. Mm-hmm. And then you get into a much darker part of the album.
Then you get into Fire Editorial, which is just this, depraved, almost... I don't know. It's very raw, but it's very, held back.
Yeah. Also, it sounds like a Fire Editorial, which is important to note. It's literally just dun, 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 and him going, something must be done.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Literally a newscaster, saying it. But it's all about, all this messed up stuff that's happening, in the wrestling area in that point in time. And it gets real dark real fast.
It's a good introduction to the rest of the album, because the next song is Stabbed to Death Outside San Juan, which is...
And this is where you go, oh, this album got real serious.
This album got dark.
Because this is a song about an actual real-life stabbing that happened to a wrestler.
Yep. And I think Fire Editorial was about that same stabbing, but from the perspective of the news outlet, right?
I believe it mentions it, and it kind of is about that in a way. I don't know if it's all about it.
But it mentions it.
I believe so, if I remember the interview I read correctly.
Fair.
I remember I read some interviews back when the album came out.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get Werewolf Gimmick, which has one of the most haunting lines in the entire album, in my opinion, which I'm going to get quick so I don't mess up.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. In this song, he says the line, "Nameless bodies in unremembered rooms know how a man become a beast when the wolf bane blooms."
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, let me say that one more time where I don't mess it up 3
Yes.
times. It's nameless bodies in unremembered rooms know how a man becomes a beast when the wolf bane blooms. And when you listen to that, you go, that's a pretty eerie line. And then you realize it's a song about him dressing up as a werewolf. It's called Werewolf Gimmick, dressing up as a werewolf and wrestling.
Right.
But it's sang in such a torturous way where it sounds like he talks about like everybody in this room dead before the dawn. He's clearly not killing anybody, but it really gets to the emotional core of that kind of wrestling thing, and where he's clearly turned on himself. He's clearly kind of lost himself along the way.
And I think that's has to do with giving into that werewolf gimmick. That's why the title of the song is as it is.
Exactly, and where it is on the album fits so perfectly. Like you say, the album kind of feels like an adrenaline rush followed by a descent into madness and a calm down.
Right.
And this is where the descent into madness really hits. Mm-hmm. Get Luna and Unmasked, which is a kind of it kind of just calms down. The madness kind of starts to
Right. It hasn't gotten better, but it's chilled out.
Things are chilling out. It kind of is just songs about just kind of dealing with everything.
Right.
Just kind of making
it's like the
it through.
aftermath.
Yeah.
Which makes for a good transition into the end of the album.
Yeah, which is where you get to the Ballad of Bull Ramos.
The Ballad of Bull Ramos is like, it's sad, but it's like hopeful almost.
It's an odd song, especially for where it is in the album, because it's the first upbeat song you get since Werewolf Gimmick.
Right.
And it's 3 songs later.
Yeah.
So it's odd in its pacing, but it kind of works because of that sadness.
Right. It's like the theme, the lyricism is kind of sad because it's about this retired wrestler who's just kind of like reliving his glory days in his head on his porch outside of like Austin or something.
It has a hopeful tint to it.
It has a hopeful tint to it.
Like one of the lines is, "I'll rise surrounded by friends."
Right. It's weird. It's like, I don't know if it's literally hopeful or if the person, the Bull Ramos, is actually trying to convince himself.
That's true. It feels like, here's the thing. Lyrically, I don't hate it as a closer. Musically, I would have never accepted it as a closer.
Well, it's not a closer.
Which is why I'm happy it's not.
Right.
But it does give a lot of, like, it closes a lot of themes on the album.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
Literally, the second song on the album is about a wrestler coming up. It's about Chavo Guerrera,
right,
who was the son of an actual wrestler. He was an actual wrestler.
Right.
And it's a story about how John Darnielle, as a kid, used to watch him on the TV, get inspired, and how Chavo grew up through the ranks, and John Darnielle watched him and became inspired. One of the lines is, "I need justice in my life. Here it comes. Look high." Off the top rope. Look high. It's Chavo Guerrera. And it's kind of like that. And then you get to this song, which is all about an actual wrestler retiring and living out his days and trying to come to terms with what he's lost and what he's gained and figuring out. And it closes a lot of these themes. And I love that it's there for that reason alone.
But I'm glad it's not a closer.
I'm glad it's not a closer.
I'm glad Hair Match is the closer.
I'm
Hair Match?
semi-glad Hair Match.
Really? You're only semi-glad?
Lyrically, it's okay. And musically, it's okay.
That's it?
As a closer.
Really? Wow.
That's all I got from it.
Wow.
What are your thoughts on Hair Match?
My thoughts on Hair Match are... Let me look at the lyrics again. I think lyrically... I should think musically it sounds as a wonderful closer because it's sort of...
Really?
Yeah.
I think... Okay, I think I like undersold it. Lyrically,
I was gonna say, nothing satisfies you.
Lyrically, I think it's very good. I think the idea of letting go is a great way to end this album.
Right, exactly.
It's a way of basically saying, look, this is what it's come to. And also like the idea that John Darnielle, or the character he's singing, is not the actual protagonist.
Right.
Or kind of the protagonist. The other protagonist is the person in the chair about to get their head cut. And I like how it focuses on them.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're going through and the letting out through that. But musically...
I think here's why
it's good.
Here's why I think it fits musically as a closer, because it fits musically as the opener. It has a very similar atmosphere to the opener,
right.
which makes it a perfect bookend.
I feel like if it was more similar to the opener, I'd like it more.
But it can't be too similar. Otherwise, it's just like, he's just copying his chords and his melody from the opener for the closer.
There's one very specific thing about the song that makes me angry, and that is when you get into like the final bridge, he's kind of like going off and he's doing the guitars, and you're like, oh, it's ramping up to something, and then you hit that like dun it, dun it, dun it on his acoustic guitar where he hits like a few notes, and it just feels jarring. It just kind of pulls. It feels like he's ramping up to the ending of an album, and then he just stops it to play some notes. And I don't know, that it's very specific and very minute, but that part always just got on my nerves, especially like 20 seconds before the end of an album.
Right, that makes sense. I mean, it's typically like jarring notes or notes that feel like they need to be fulfilled are called tension notes.
Fair enough.
Or like notes that build
Yeah,
tension.
They don't feel necessary or that they belong. I don't know, but yeah, I'm glad you like it as a closer.
No, I do. I enjoy it as a closer because I enjoy it in juxtaposition to Southwestern Territory. I think with that as the opener, Hair Match makes a fantastic closer. If another song was an opener, or if I mean, I guess you could put another song in place of Hair Match that also was thematically similar to Southwestern Territory, and it would work.
Is there any other
Nothing
song
off
on
the
the album that you
album.
would think that would
No,
work?
the
Or
way the
it would
album-
have to be a specific song written for it?
It would have to be a song specifically written for it. Right now, as far as the album is constructed, as far as the songs that are available on it, Hair Match is a closer. I couldn't see Hair Match anywhere else on the album except for a closer.
The only other place I could see Hair Match is like near Luna, maybe
You
like
think so?
12, like right before the end.
Okay.
But I agree it would need to be towards the end of the album. It is a close, not maybe even if not a closing statement, it is lyrics that close a lot of themes.
If you put Hair Match near Luna, I demand that you put the Ballad of Bull Ramos, or is it Ballad or?
The Ballad of Bull Ramos.
Yeah, I demand you put that as the closer in place of Hair Match. Because if you're gonna put any song in replacement for a closer, I think the only one that will really fit is Ballad of
The
Bull
thing
Ramos.
is, though, I think the Ballad of Bull Ramos would work as a closer only if the Legend of Chavo Guerrera is the opener.
And this is-
Don't you see what I mean? No,
and
because
this
they're
is why
clearly
Hair Match
bookends,
has
and that's
to
why
be the closer.
that's why hair match is the closer. It makes sense and I realized that as I was listening to this morning. Not listening. I was thinking about like this morning. I was like, Hair Match has to be the closer.
Hair Match has
because
to be
there
the
has
closer.
to be a song after the
Right,
ballad.
exactly.
It doesn't work without it. I know you really enjoyed talking about this album as a musical. Is there anything else you want to say about that? Because I kind of like looking at it that way. Because once you said that, I listened to it and I kind of heard it more.
Honestly, I don't know. I have this idea of like a story, like two parallel stories. One about an up and coming wrestler in the '80s scene, witnessing all these great like legends like Chavo Guerrero and Bull Ramos, and like dealing with things like getting choked out, and then a fan who's following this wrestler, watching him like with Chavo on local TV or like going to shows and like watching the news editorials. It could be about the wrestler who gets stabbed outside of San Juan, and it would be this wonderful and beautiful and cheesy theater show, and I would pay good amounts of money to see it.
That's the thing, is it sounds like a musical if you don't put that much thought into it.
Right.
If you don't think about like the legitimate narratives of what would be happening, you listen to it and you're like, this could all be done on stage. It looks like when you're listening to like The Legend of Chavo Guerrera, I just imagine someone sitting on like a fake house set, like on a rocking chair, just singing along to it.
Yeah, right.
It just seems like it would work so much. Because it feels like the world building adds to that, because
Right.
it feels like they're building a world where these characters can exist, which
Right.
is what you need to do when you're making like a play or
Exactly.
a stage production.
And I think that fits perfectly thematically with the album because it's all about 80s wrestling. Wrestling is stage.
That's a great point.
Wrestling is literally a production. It's produced, it's
Yeah.
rehearsed. It's like sometimes there's lines, sometimes there's like parts and acts to wrestling. If you ask anybody who's a fan of WWE, they'll say that no, there's a story. There's like backstories and drama to everybody.
They can talk to you for hours about
Exactly. So why wouldn't John Darnell make an album about 80s wrestling that sounds exactly like a musical soundtrack?
And I think that's kind of the beauty of this album, that when you listen to it, it's about something that's staged. It's about something you've heard of before. But he manages to make it personal, as he does with anything.
Exactly.
He manages to make it beautiful in so many unique, interesting ways.
And on that note, we announce our production of The Legend of Chavo Guerrero, a Mountain Goats musical.
I would I would listen, I would write the hell out of that. I would make it done, man. It's incredible.
But I think that's a good point to leave off of.
I do think it is.
And I think with that, we will put an end to this segment of Emo Trash.
Oh,
Any
no.
final- what?
We need to bring up next week.
Oh, right, that's right. So next week, we actually have a surprise. We're going to have a special guest on next week who might end up being a recurring guest. Our good friend,
Right.
Quinn O'Neill. He actually gave us the recommendation for next week's album.
Prescribed us. He's not here to
prescribed
prescribe it himself because
Right.
he's a coward.
Yeah, essentially.
But-
But we're going to do it for him because,
Yeah.
we're good friends, even though he's a
We
little
were
bitch.
walking by him in the hallway. He threw us like, he was like, maybe this will help your depression for a week. And then he walked away and we're like, screw you, man.
Except it won't help our depression for a
Oh,
week.
it
It'll
won't.
make it so much, because literally...
But we'll try.
Yeah. Do you
Uh,
remember the name of the album?
Oh, I know the name of the album.
Okay. Well, I don't remember the artist.
Oh, wow, that's his recommendation. I do not know the name of that album.
Yeah, one sec.
The common album we will be doing Aaron West in the Roaring Twenties, We Don't Have Each Other, / Bittersweet EP / Orchard Park single. If you don't know, Aaron West is a side project by the lead singer of the Wonder Years, Dan Soupy Campbell, and it basically all tells one story. It is all about this character, Aaron West. So the album's about him, then the EP continues his story, and then there's a single to continue that, which is the lead for a new album. But we're going to talk about, since there's 3 of us, and there's an album, an EP, and a single, we're probably going to talk about all of it. It'll probably be a bit longer discussion and a bit more full.
But that's okay because the album isn't particularly long.
Oh, it's only 9 songs.
Exactly.
Altogether, it's only like 15 songs.
Between all of Aaron West's discography, it's about the same length as one very long album.
Oh yeah,
So-
it's shorter than Goth's.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Which is the Mountain
Well, you
Goats'
can't
newest
compare
album.
it to the Mountain Goats. And the prescribed album by Quinn O'Neill is James Is Going to Die Soon by Crywank.
I realized the funniest thing this morning.
What's that?
So we're introducing this guy Quinn.
Yeah.
The only thing an audience would know about him
Yeah.
is that he recommended an album, Crywank, to us.
That's all you need to know about Quinn O'Neill.
That's all you got.
We're telling you nothing else about Quinn O'Neill
that's
until
all
he
you
gets on
know.
the show, except that the album
Look.
is by a band called Crywank.
Quinn loves Crywank.
And
that's all we're going to give
That's
you.
all you're going to get. Quinn really likes Crywank. Be sure to tweet him at, I actually don't know Quinn's Twitter, but
Find it and tweet him. We know you love Crywank.
yeah, essentially. Actually, does Quinn even have a Twitter? Does Quinn even
Does Quinn even have a quitter?
does Twin even have a
Does
Twitter?
Twin even have a quitter?
Does Quinn have a Twitter? That's a great
I
question.
don't know. If he did, though, we should all tweet him. I heard you love Crywanking.
I heard you love to Crywank.
You love it. But yeah, that'll probably do it for the episode, right? Unless you want
no.
to actually put in the Twitter handle.
I do actually, because
yeah?
I think I found it. It's PQ O'Neill, so that's PQONEILL.
You
So
sure
go ahead.
he wants that?
Huh?
You sure he wants that, out?
Ask me if I give a fuck.
Fair enough.
Yeah, no.
You realize this won't be out for a while, right?
Yeah, I know. It's okay because eventually someone will listen to it and be like, "I'm gonna go tweet."
I'm gonna go tweet that random guy Crywank.
Yeah,
That'll show
essentially.
him.
Be like, "Hey, I heard you like to Crywank." All right, that's it. I think we're about done here.
I think we're good.
All right, well.
Until next week, we'll see you in the trash.